Well, while we've been talking about the U.S. elections, I just wanted to make people aware that the 20th People's Congress is actually going on in China right now as well, which is their election process. I studied abroad there 10 years ago when it happened, when power crossed from Hu Jintao to Xi Jinping. And President Xi actually went ahead and removed term limits. So he's going to be the first person to have power in China for more than 10 years since Chairman Mao. Obviously, there's been a more nationalist bent there in his reign, and there's been a lot of comparisons drawn between Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan. So I've been listening to some China watching podcasts and just recently came across something that's really interesting. You guys might be interested in interviewing someone by the name of Chris Miller. Wrote a book called The Chip War. Apparently, I didn't know anything about this, but the vast majority of...
saw this. Yeah, go ahead.
The vast majority of semiconductors are manufactured in U.S.-aligned countries in Southeast Asia, the more developed ones, namely Taiwan, Japan, South Korea. China has a little bit of capacity. America doesn't really do very much chip manufacturing anymore, but the Biden administration just did a executive action, I guess you would say, that basically is going to penalize anyone that sells semiconductors to Chinese state-owned firms. They've already, basically the CHIPS Act has dropped the IPO price of Huawei by almost 50% because they really don't have access to those kinds of things already.
Well, now let me just ask you about this, because I've been reading about this. There's two things that I saw over the past couple of days, and I just haven't had a chance to look into this. The semiconductor policy, my understanding, and maybe and Bradley, just make a note to remind me to dig more into this. I don't have the tweet, but I came across what you're talking about, and it seems to it seems to basically say, like, you're going to have to choose between your citizenship and working over there in that industry. Is that what can you be more explicit as to what the policy is? Because I also just saw that there was an issue where China's recruited a bunch of former British military pilots to teach the Chinese armed forces how to defeat Western warplanes and helicopters. And there are people who are basically saying, use the Biden administration tactic to basically say to these people, you're going to go over there for $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 and sell these secrets, essentially, or this know-how. You're going to lose your citizenship because this is a national security issue. But give us as much of a breakdown of that policy as you can.
I'm not super familiar with the policy, actually. I just recently came across the interview with him on a China watching podcast called, I believe, China Unscripted or China Unfiltered, something along those lines. But the gist of what they were saying is that even though we don't actually do very much manufacturing of chips ourselves here in America, the vast majority of the technology that's required in terms of like intellectual property licensing, the technology that's required to manufacture those more advanced chips is controlled by U.S. companies like Apple, Oracle, IBM, places like that. So basically, without the licensing to that technology, you'd still be able to manufacture the chips that you're currently able to manufacture them at. But because of the rate of increase of chip, basically computing power, I think there was a law when I was in college a decade ago that said that chips double in their processing power about every 18 months. Yes, that is the... basically, you'd be frozen...
God, I can't remember. Moore's Law.
Moore's Law. Yeah, I was thinking that, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to shout it out. But yeah, basically it would freeze them at their level of current capacity. And if you think about what a chip involves, everything that runs electricity other than something like an incandescent light bulb, which just passes electricity through a filament, I mean, their electric toothbrushes have chips. Your microwave has chips, your toasters have chips, your vacuum cleaners have chips. And yeah, maybe you could still manufacture a vacuum cleaner, but you wouldn't be able to manufacture something like a computer or, for instance, a missile delivery system or something of that nature. And the vast majority, which is also very interesting, the most high-tech chips are actually located in Taiwan. Major player is, I believe it's TSMC, Taiwan something semiconductor probably.
Here is a...
Go ahead.
Let me read this. I found the tweet. It's from a guy named Jordan Schneider. I don't know who he is. He's an analyst at
that's a good name, I think. He's
an analyst at the Rhodium Group, and he has the thread here, and I'm just going to read it because, it's interesting. The U.S. government's new export controls are wreaking havoc on China's chip industry. New rules around U.S. persons are driving an industry-wide decapitation. The following is a translation of a thread posted earlier this week by Lid and I don't know who that is. Lots of people don't know what happened yesterday. To put it simply, Biden has forced all Americans working in China to pick between quitting their jobs and losing American citizenship. Every American executive and engineer working in China's semiconductor manufacturing industry resigned yesterday, paralyzing Chinese manufacturing overnight. One round of sanctions did more damage than all 4 years of performative sanctioning under Trump. Although American semiconductor exporters had to apply for licenses during the Trump years, licenses were approved within a month. With the new Biden sanctions, all American suppliers of IP blocks, components, and services departed overnight. That's cutting off all service to China. Long story short, every advanced node semiconductor company is currently facing comprehensive supply cutoff, resignations from all American staff, and immediate operations paralysis. This is what annihilation looks like. China's semiconductor manufacturing industry was reduced to zero overnight, complete collapse, no chance of survival. I don't know if this is, I'm going to dig into this. Person A, now these apparently DMs in a screenshot. Person A, everyone from Lam Research at Yangtze Memory left today, and on the 12th, the AMAT folks will leave as well. Person B, yes, not just Yangtze, but also HLMC, ICRDs, Jiding Fab, Hefei's, CXMT, and DRAM Fab, all leaving. Even Gage in Hangzhou is pausing operations. Question, why hasn't Chinese media reported on this? Answer, I don't know. The only possible explanation is this is a major story and its future ramifications will bring severe damage to the supposedly continuously flourishing semiconductor industry and Chinese national security as a whole. This level of embarrassment is on par with Pelosi's Taiwan visit.
Wow.
Many people just don't understand why this is annihilation. And then they have a screenshot of ASML. I'm not quite sure what that is. We looked that up. They have stopped providing services and support to mainland China. Dear U.S. colleagues...
It's a semiconductor company.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the U.S. management team. This is a screen post. As you may have heard, on Friday, October 7th, the U.S. government issued a new set of regulations prohibiting support to certain fabs. Not sure what fab stands for in that context. Maybe fabricators in China by U.S. persons. As a result, ASML U.S. employees, including U.S. citizens, green card holders, and foreign nationals who live in the U.S. are prohibited from providing certain services to advanced fabs in China. Effective at midnight tonight, ASML U.S. employees must refrain, either directly or indirectly, from servicing, shipping, or providing support to any customers in China until further notice. Why ASML is actively assessing which particular fabs are affected by this restriction. If you have questions about how this may affect you or your team, please contact So something major seems to have taken place. And I haven't seen diddly squat reported anywhere on this.
Yeah.
Nowhere. Yeah, exactly. I think
it's really fascinating. But
the interview was dramatic. It's pretty shocking. I mean, if you think about, say for some reason they actually tried to invade Taiwan and shut down basically that industry. If you thought that there was a supply chain crisis during COVID,
oh my God,
because cars didn't have chips. I mean, imagine if you couldn't get toasters.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. What was the name of that podcast again? What was it? Chip War?
I believe it's China Unscripted or China Uncensored. I can't remember exactly.
Chip War's the book.
Head.
Oh, okay. Uncensored.
Chip
okay.
Wars is the book.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that. We're going to look into it more, but I appreciate the call.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. That completes our phone call portion of the program. Sean from Maryland. Majority Report audience is the best audience. Shout out to us and you guys for having an amazing show that brings in great and informed people. This is the,
People say that all the time.
I had a conversation I ran into Mike from Florida, was at the conference, and we were talking, and he's followed my career for almost 2 decades at this point. Well, probably a little bit more than a decade. And I was trying to explain to him why I'm satisfied with the size of this audience. Would I like it to triple overnight? Sure, that would be great. But the quality of our audience, where we can take calls completely unscreened, and 9 out of 10 calls, I am learning something from this, is, I think, astonishing.
It's unparalleled.
I love it.
It really
is. I really do love it.
Amazing.
I appreciate you people so much.
And that just helps put into context some of the tweets that I've been seeing about, I haven't done a deep dive into what's happening with the semiconductor chips, and I was piecing together information, and then we have a caller that calls in and just fills in all those gaps. It's really awesome. So Thank you so much.
Does U.S. persons mean American corporations in the China context? I don't know. We're going to dig more into this, because there's obviously a story here. And I can't help but think that Stoller would know something about it. Maybe
Stoller is advocating that we mobilize for war today.
Yeah, I saw that. That was...
He is?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can hold off on Stoller for a minute.
Yeah. Maybe we could ask him about that, because is he being facetious?
I don't think he's being facetious.
No, this is a pretty,
Stoller has a long-term, has had a long-standing concern about, and a legitimate one, about our supply lines and how we have compromised our supply lines. I mean, look, there is, the leverage that China has over the United States. COVID sort of gave us a notion. It wasn't on purpose in this instance, but it gives you a notion of what they're capable of doing to our manufacturing, our supply lines, et cetera, et cetera. They shut down for a month in any given province in China, and it implicates our economy for a couple of years. And he has been very, very, very sensitive to that. And I don't know. I got to see what he's saying. I don't. Is that more of like a?
I got it here. Let's see.
Is that more of a warning or of a? Is that?
This is Elbridge Colby. This is the Secretary of State of a Democratic administration. It's not a random think tanker. Basically, Blinken was saying the timeline for invading Taiwan is up, and Stoller says the U.S. needs to decouple our supply chains from China and mobilize for war ASAP. I really don't understand the apathy.
Well, I mean, the second part is...
Should be a fun couple of weeks coming up, folks. We will get into this more.
I do want to investigate too, like the passage of the CHIPS Act, what some of the, I guess, long-term ramifications of that are going to be.
Well, hopefully it's to build them,
here domestically, but then, I mean...
Yeah, it'd be nice to, strengthen our supply lines and have a little bit more redundancy in the event of shocks and do that without war.
I mean,
and you know what we got to do?
Exactly, right? Like, I'm 100% on board with that, and then I don't know why Stoller has to go to war.
Well, it is like, what are we going to do about Taiwan? That is going to be the question, and maybe we need to bring somebody on and start having conversations to that effect.
Hopefully not World War III is what I would like.
World War III. That would be the best thing. But good time to nationalize our refineries. That's the way I get on war footing. I start to nationalize some of these major industries.
Right.
For the war effort.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We can, just like Joe Manchin said, we cannot be reliant on a dictator like Putin or on other foreign leaders for...
Let's nationalize all of our energy production in this country, and we should probably also nationalize the internet infrastructure. Everybody gets fiber under King Cedar. I'm telling you that right now. That is one of the things I'll be offering.